see all the greatness I possess, endless possibilities. Look in the mirror, what do I see?
Welcome to another segment of Seek Elevation, the Seek Elevation experience. Today, I want to talk about something that's going to look like college sports on the surface, like we're talking about college sports news, but it's actually a business lesson. Business lesson can be learned throughout this situation that has made news. And it's a business lesson for anyone that is building with their name, their image, their likeness, and or their vision. So I want to talk about that today. University of Colorado, their athletic department, they reported that the athletic department is projected to run a significant deficit for the current fiscal year, ending in June 2026. So the department is going to be relying on a lot of help from the institution, from the university itself, and from student fees and whatever to close the gap. And a lot of this has happened because of the NIL era. A lot of things that have been rushed in, a lot of changes within not just the NCAA, but universities within themselves to kind of try to keep up with having a handle on these athletes and what's going on compared to and competitively with third parties. And that caused a lot because this infrastructure collegiately has been built to sustain itself, multi-billion-dollar industry when it comes to sports. But with the NIL shakeup and other people being able to step in, athletes being able to take a little more control, the NCAA wanting to get back control, universities wanting to figure it all out as well, not losing athletes to what's called a transfer portal. A lot of moving parts have been going so fast. But this segment is not necessarily about, again, college sports or NIL in college sports. It is about a business lesson that can be learned from all of that. So again, welcome to Seek Elevation Experience. If this is your first time tuning in, I am Ella Keisha, also known as the ownership attorney and the empowerment influencer. Yes, I am an attorney, but any information that I speak about on this platform, I'm not giving you legal advice because I'm not your attorney. I am giving you legal information for you to take with it, do with it what you will, dig deeper. And if it does resonate with you, to find someone that can, give you more information. Find another attorney that can give you more information. But of course, if you're in the Georgia area or you have any type of business related to Georgia, you can also contact me as well. But this right here, this podcast is not to give you legal advice. It is just to give you legal education. I do represent and advocate for creatives, sports professionals, entrepreneurs, founders, for them to elevate, especially first-gen achievers. As a first-gen achiever myself, I have a very dedicated soft spot for those who are the first in doing what they're doing, the first in being profitable, successful, creating generational wealth. I love my first gen achievers. But let us go ahead and get into this segment. Uh, I hope you are, get your notepad, your pens. If you're watching this, grab it. If you're driving and listening to this via audio, make sure you re-listen to it again when you have a pen and paper so you can write notes, especially if you are a creative, if you are an individual in sports, and if you are an entrepreneur or a founder of your business. Because I'm going to give you information to elevate you, which is what this space is. It is for a space for you to elevate. It's for elevation, transformation, for clarity. So we don't want to just listen. We want to actually take it in and take action. I empower individuals who are definitely consider themselves as someone that's rising, redefining themselves, and daring to step into their highest potential, and those individuals who want to become the best versions of themselves and own every step of their journey. So if you're building, creating, leading, or evolving, let's get into this segment. As I stated, and I'm going to share that article in a second. As I stated, the University of Colorado announced this big deficit that they may get ready to experience. And I'm trying to share this article with you, but my mouse does not want to cooperate, does not want to work for me to get that up for you and to share it. I'll just insert it within the videos, but as we get into this segment, we're going to talk about some of the biggest drivers that can either excel what you're doing or make what you're doing fail. And two of the biggest drivers for the University of Colorado, and I'm using them as an example, but there's other colleges that are affected the same exact way as the University of Colorado with the shift of this NIL. But the two biggest drivers with the University of Colorado is increased payments that they've made to players, and roughly it's been about $10 million per year that has been tied to football coaching compensation, including the head coach. And if you want to read this, again, I'm going to pop this up after this segment, but it was the Sports Business Journal is one of the fact checks on this. And because this happened when, again, this influx of NIL, it happened where it outpaced the current infrastructure of the University of Colorado. And again, that this lesson applies to all college sports, but think about this for what you're actually doing. If you're looking for growth in whatever it is that you're doing, you want to seek growth. Yes, that is very important for us to want to grow. Like I said, we seek elevation here, but we don't want growth to outpace our infrastructure. A lot of times we seek more without having the capacity to withhold whatever it is that we're seeking. So growth is not the problem. Wanting more is not the problem. The problem is expanding faster than our systems can actually support. And from my experience with working with the different individuals I work with across the different industries, that has been the number one issue with sustainability. A lot of times you have individuals show up and they have great talent, whatever it is that you're actually providing in service or product. You're talented in that. That's not the issue. What starts to separate the 1% from the 99 is infrastructure. What is actually laid out as a foundation before honestly even showing up in the world with your talent. And a lot of times that foundation is not there, from business entity structure to the paperwork to individuals that need to be in place, to contracts between individuals that may be in place. A lot of the infrastructure is not there, and the infrastructure is actually what allows individuals to hold what they earn, hold what they want. Without infrastructure, the right infrastructure, the strong foundation, without it, more money, more control, more opportunity, all of that becomes pressure, like in pipes. It becomes pressure ready to make everything explode instead of power. And let's go ahead and get into just highlighting some points that even University of Colorado reflects in not having the right infrastructure for demanding more growth, more control, more power, and other colleges as well, especially the power. They want more power. Like I mentioned before, a lot of times when you're running businesses or you're used to having certain power, certain control, you don't want to lose it and you want more of it, and possibly not in a position to sustain that. So point one, when we look at the University of Colorado and how they increase spending in major areas. It's not across all sports, but especially football. And then you have basketball. You have coaches that you want to bring in to build up the program so that there's going to be high costs that come there, even with negotiations of back end deals or revenue share. There's still high costs because the money that comes in that's supposed to contribute to the bottom line and to the profit is being distributed, even if it's on the back end, whether it's front end or back end, that money is not, kept for increased profits. It has to actually go out through distribution. So what coaching costs, and when you're looking at college sports, and this may even be with your business, right? If whatever brings in revenue is a variable, it's not a constant, it's variable. For example, you don't know how many clients you'll get per month. You don't know how many, opportunities or consultations or performances or whatever it is you do. You don't how many products you may sell. If it's something that is a variable, then you have to really think about what that infrastructure look like to hold that variation of products, services that you're going to offer or bring in. And then you got to think about what are the expenses for the revenue coming out, cost in, cost out. Where are the expenses? Do I have revenue coming in that's variable, but expenses going out that are fixed? What does that infrastructure look like when you have something fixed going out and something that's a variable coming in? So that's the same thing with University of Colorado. They created these fixed expenses, cost of these coaches and whatever they agreed to pay athletes, cost going out. But then you have these variables coming in. What are ticket sales? What are, uh, students' tuition, fees, room, board? What does those variables look like? Students transfer out. Some seasons you may sell a lot of tickets. Sometimes you may not sell a lot of tickets. So there's variables with these cost expenses, but even with them knowing they had variables, they kept increasing fixed expenses. And that created a strain on the University of Colorado. Now they're reaching out in other areas saying, okay, we can't just rely on the variables of this revenue or these revenues here. Now we want to say, okay, can we put our hands in the pot with student fees? Although that's a variable as well, but they still need extra help from the university there to sustain for the athletic department. Can we pull in student fees to help close the gap and other university revenues to come in and help close the gap? And as you're listening, I want you to hear that this is what happens when, before stabilizing anything that you have going on, there's constant change of what's going out. Hiring. So, yes, you have to build a foundation. What does that look like in the beginning? How are you thinking about hiring in the beginning? A lot of times in the beginning, we start with just ourselves. Are we thinking about, okay, when I build my foundation, I need a strong foundation. Do I look at the areas in which I am strong in? And to be honest with you, a lot of us who are founders, we need to be strong in every area before we even do delegate. We need to understand every component of what we're actually doing before we delegate. And I know there's this thing about you can't do it all. You got to immediately hire. I am a strong proponent for, in the beginning, do as much as you can. Not just because you have to, but because it allows you to learn every area of what you need before you bring somebody else in, because that helps you to be able to even select the right people. They won't be able to run anything past you. I don't care if it's someone that you're bringing in for tech, social media, whatever it is, you'll be able to understand exactly what you need and what someone else is saying they're able to deliver to you if you get to know it. But really stabilizing, what does that look like, bringing people in? Maybe you already brought a partner in. How do you stabilize that? What are the contractual agreements and terms and conditions of that partnership? Get that really stabilized as you are growing and bringing in revenue. So it makes sense, especially if whatever you're doing is a variable. Maybe there may be things when you talk about hiring, there may be some things that are contingent upon what you bring in. Not just saying, I'm going to bring in X person for $8 and you are on a variable scale. You may say, I'll bring in X person and your pay is contingent upon the variable in which actually come in. So really understanding stabilizing or getting a stable revenue in before just trying to bring everybody into your business, having more fixed costs going out and variable income coming in. Um, Also entering into contracts. This is something that University of Colorado did, right? They signed big contracts with guaranteed cash flow. Signing big contracts with guaranteed cash flow. Think about what guarantees are you putting out in whatever you're actually doing. Should it be guarantees on anything? Or again, should it be contingencies as you're building a foundation? Should there be contingencies versus guarantees? The University of Colorado, they committed to certain recurring expenses based on, and the coach mentioned this before, based on the projection of optimism. It's always great to be optimistic in your business. Always great. You don't want to be pessimistic. You want to be optimistic, but you do want to be realistic. And so a lot of times individuals will do projections based on optimism instead of realism when it comes to projection. And then they find themselves in the same situation as the University of Colorado. Either completely their business, their whatever they're going to do is going to completely fail, or they find themselves scrambling and reaching out for more help in order to succeed or sustain themselves. So I'm talking to you. If you are an athlete and you're in an endorsement deal, an NIL deal, do understand that income does fluctuate, but your lifestyle, your training cost, if you are in college, a lot of times those costs may be taken care of. But even with that, there's things outside, and this is what people are not talking about. There's things outside of what college offers that you may need. There's some additional costs that may come with sustaining your body, and especially when it comes to insurances. Having insurance for you to remain healthy. If you get injured, you can have the training room and all the good things, but if there's something that they cannot provide, then your insurance kicks in if you have insurance. If not, that's a cost on you as well. Um, but just know that even with NIL coming in college, you're hiring professionals. College athletes are now hiring third-party professionals, hopefully. And hopefully you're hiring individuals that you can trust, but you're hiring third-party professionals. Now you have fees, cost, right? You have a cost coming in or going out for professionals. You are living the same exact possible problem at a smaller scale, but you're living the same thing. What do you have coming in? These endorsement deals may fluctuate. You may be able to lock some things in that says it's a guarantee, but then there's contractual terms that can void out that guarantee. But even with that guarantee coming in, how does that money sustain you? How do you stretch that money? Not get that revenue in and have it all go out towards fixed costs. How can that revenue help bring more revenue in for you? If you are an entertainer or a creative, you may be, if you're booking more work, constantly booking more work, but you're still relying on, a lot of times when you're in the entertainment industry, you don't get paid up front. You may have to get paid after a service if you do not aggressively negotiate those type of payment terms in your contract. If you are waiting on pay, some payments may be late, inconsistent in your gigs. You may have very high peak seasons where everything looks great and it's coming in, and then you have seasons where it's real dry and you don't. So you may deal with inconsistent, not just pay, but inconsistent platforms. Or you may just have one main big thing, one main big opportunity that you have to use and stretch out. And that growth or inconsistency of it can cost you your peace and creating leverage if you don't have a foundation or infrastructure to match that type of inconsistency. If you are an entrepreneur, it's the same thing. If you're an entrepreneur, like I mentioned with the college and hiring, if you're an entrepreneur and you're thinking about hiring, expanding, or getting into long-term obligations, and you have inconsistency, you don't have stable cash flow, you don't have an infrastructure for that, that can cause a major issue. So how do you, and what do you need to do as far as infrastructure wise to be able to hire, be able to bring people in? Is it long-term obligation or is it project by project? Or like I said, is it a contingency pay versus a fixed pay? What type of infrastructure do you need in order to be sustainable? If your income, and I'm speaking to everyone, if your income is very flexible, is not guaranteed, is seasonal, is situational, you want to be very careful about creating expenses that are rigid. Your system will eventually lag. You want an infrastructure to match your income to your outcome. So ask yourself, if my income was to drop by any percentage, whatever that percentage is, if my income was to drop by X percentage by next month, next quarter, whatever, next 6 months, what does my infrastructure look like? Do I have things that are fixed that can actually hurt me? And if I do have those things that are fixed that can actually hurt me, these are the things that I need to change to create a better infrastructure to match my income versus outcome until that situation can change. But you're constantly building an infrastructure and adapting and adjusting based on what your variables actually look like. And that's what University of Colorado did not do, because everyone is rushing to bring in star quality athletes to be able to compete with third parties in these NIL deals, especially after the settlement, the NIL settlement with the Power Five schools, with the schools now being able to offer NIL deals, not just through third party, with schools being able to offer them. Now they're like, hey, listen, we want to be able to offer these deals. We want to keep more control and hopefully steer them away from third party as much as we can. But the infrastructure was not put into place to do that. The infrastructure that was built was actually built to keep all monies that have been coming in and paying no money out to athletes. And so that's where sustainability came in. But with the change of income versus outcome, there needed to be a change in infrastructure. And so now they're struggling and they're failing in that situation. But you don't want to do that. Learn from them. Look at your business infrastructure. Look how it's set up, what's fixed versus what is variable. If you're in a situation where what you offer is based on variation, until you grow, you want to build the infrastructure and have the right paperwork in place with the individuals to match that. Now, another thing looking at the University of Colorado is, like I said, their vision expanded very quickly. Their visibility increased very quickly with who they brought on as far as the coaching staff. Their expectations increased. We just talked about their financial commitments increase, but their planning appears to not have increased. Planning for reserves operation, just a long-term balance, all of that, they didn't do all of that at scale. And that's what you want to do. Business planning. So first we talked about just the infrastructure. How strong is your foundation to hold in what you actually want? How strong is that? Does it even match based on what you want? But now, point two, what about your planning? You have your infrastructure in place now. It can sustain whatever it is that you want. So point two, now that you have your infrastructure, what about your business planning? So your planning is not just about capacity now. Or should I say your planning is about capacity now. It's not just about your ambition now, is what I should say. It's not just about your ambition. Your planning now is about the capacity of your infrastructure. You don't want your ambition to move faster than the capacity creates that we stated. So now in your business planning, what are opportunities that you're going to seize? How are you going to plan to sell your products? I know individuals who sell products and were very excited about, there was this organization I was a part of, and they help entrepreneurs in different facets, different ways. But one of the ways is there were certain entrepreneurs who had products and they wanted to get into brick and mortar. They wanted to get into retail. They want their products inside of the Walmarts and the Targets, and very ambitious with that, which is great. But one of the things that I seen that was very concerning, just being a part of that organization, was these entrepreneurs were pitching to these retailers to get their products inside of these retailers without having all of the other things executed within their business, all of the things, the plan laid out for their actual business. But they're going to connect and get more visibility, which is their hope, by getting into these retailers. Well, there was I'm trying to think of her name. she had a natural hair care line, and I used to use the hair care products. Oh, it was slipping my mind, it will come to me. But she got into retail. She was actually running at least 20 years before she even got into retail. But she got into it, and after some time, she lost all of her intellectual property because of the contract she entered into with the retailers. She ended up, I don't know if it was knowingly, unknowingly, it sounds like from her, if you listen to the interviews that she has done, she didn't know. There was things that were taken right from under her feet, according to her. So maybe she didn't understand. Maybe she trusted individuals to review the contractual terms. I don't know how she didn't know. I don't know that. But the point is, she didn't know her intellectual property was taken right from under her. And she got pushed out of retail where they were continuing to sell her product. And the product was actually her name in the product. So she can't even use her name to sell, if she wanted to start over, to sell hair care products. She uses her name, but I believe she says she's now going more into consulting to kind of help within this realm of businesses who want to go into retail, understanding what that all looks like. So she's using her name for that, but she can't even use it if she wanted to start a hair care line because they took that IP for that particular lane, that particular class. So understanding and say yes to opportunities without mapping what those opportunities require, that's not business planning. You need the business plan. Looking for growth and visibility before building and planning back end systems on what that look like. You don't want that to happen. And assuming that things would just work themselves out. You don't want that to happen either. And these are some of the things that appears University of Colorado did. They're saying yes to opportunities before. Obviously, they mapped out a whole business plan of what that looked like. It was yes to opportunity of bringing these high profile coaches in. Yes to the opportunity of bringing these high profile athletes in. We need more visibility at University of Colorado. You know, we feel with more visibility, this is me just saying it in from the inference of what I'm seeing, with more visibility, with saying yes to these opportunities, things will work themselves out. And you fast forward, they have not for University of Colorado or others. So talking to you again, my athletes, if you are saying yes to a lot of things, you especially now the levels have risen in college sports, at least. Your expectation, there's more expected of you now. And if you are taking on those higher expectations and you have no long-term plan, especially when it comes to performance. So this is, if you're a pro athlete, as especially if you're a pro athlete. If you're anyone that uses your body, let's just take it out of a specific sport. If your business is determined by you using your body and you don't have a long-term plan set in place for recovery, finances, life after competition, success is literally borrowing against your future. I seen a video that Marion Jones posted. For those who may not know Marion Jones, she was a very high profile track athlete. I am a former track athlete. I competed in track and field in college, and I went on to compete in track and field professionally. Your schedule can get packed. There's a lot of demand on your body, not just in competition, but in training. You have a window of time if you're using your body in any capacity to provide your service. You have a window of time. And I was looking at a video with Marion Jones, and she was talking about her knees, how it is so hard for her to move and walk with her knees. And she said, yes, I'm this person once known as the fastest woman in the world and all these accolades and medals and all the great things, who struggles to walk pain free. That's a cost. That diminishes or robs someone's quality of life. I would like to say, arguably, that success is more than financial. Success is obtaining a certain quality of life, of enjoying life. And sometimes that may mean what money cannot buy, sustaining those things. And to be in great health, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, that's success. And so as I look at Marion Jones and her struggle and her looks so painful what her knees are compared to all the things she did, her success borrowed against her future self. So not planning things out when everybody demands so much from you, not having a plan for long-term recovery and finances and life after competitions is a problem. If you're an entertainer, creative, again, and if you're using your body, that applies to you, like I said, with athletes. But if you're doing things, your audience is growing, your fan base is growing, you're doing all the things that make that happen, but your contracts, your boundaries, your workflows, how things need to look like for you to plan out being successful, if those things are not in place, then you're going to burn out. If it's not a physical thing, you're just going to burn out as a person. In my last segment, I talked about Rod Wave, and he touched on this. He had his aha moment when he did realize it's only one of me that's doing all of this. And everybody that's around me, the agents, the managers, and all the professionals, they are not going to burn out as quick as I am because they got 10 of me to bring in the revenue that they want. I only have one of me to bring in the revenue that I want. So not planning out what that looks like for long-term success is a huge issue for entertainers and creatives. What you're actually providing as a service, you actually build yourself up as an asset. Not the actual thing you're doing, but you now build yourself as an asset. How can you use this asset in your business planning to multiply your success? Entrepreneurs, founders, same thing. You hear a lot of entrepreneurs say, I want to scale, I want to scale, I want to scale, I want to scale in this. If you're chasing scale without having a business plan in place to upgrade your operations, your systems, again, your delegations, however that looks according to your infrastructure, your legal structure, which is it's wild how that is one of the most ignored components, pieces of the puzzles to individual pictures. If you're going to build this complete picture and put this puzzle together, all pieces need to be in there. The legal structure, everything. Without all of those things and wanting to focus just on scaling, without the business planning, the infrastructure, and then the business planning, growth will expose every weak point that you have in your business. Unfortunately, most of the individuals that come to me come from pain. They don't come from gain. They come from a place of pain. And then it's like working backwards, forwards. It's great that individuals will finally wake up, regardless if they're coming from pain or not. They wake up and want to get it right and possibly have to start over, but willing to do so. But it will be even more beautiful if people just come from a place of gain. I don't want to experience certain pain. I want to mitigate my pain, alleviate, limit. I want to come from a place of gain before I even get to experiencing these bad things. I want to put a plan together for protection and prosperity. So, looking at the University of Colorado, not planning for, not having infrastructure, point one, and point two, not planning for the change, the capacity in which they wanted that change, you see that. So now ask yourself, wanting more, if you want more without building capacity, this is not growth. This is exposure. So, let me ask myself, if everything I'm working on doubled tomorrow, if everything I'm working on doubled tomorrow, what would break first? If everything I'm working on doubled tomorrow, if I'm an athlete, I'm working on putting my body in the best position possible to achieve whatever this goal is that I wrote down. If I doubled that work that I'm putting in, what would break down first? If I am an entrepreneur and I'm putting all this energy and effort into these things for me to scale, to do things, to make things achieve a certain level where it takes less of me eventually, but I need to put in this work to get there, to get to financially to that position, everything else. If I doubled on that, what would break first? On whatever those things are that I'm doing, what would break first? If you are creative, and if I am using my mind, my body to create, if I doubled on that work, what would break first? So you have to put a business plan together that's going to allow you to plan out long-term success without burning out your body, your mind, your spirit. Do not get completely drained. Put a plan together. Another thing, as I was reading this information with the University of Colorado and their situation, I was looking at how this deficit appeared, right? And then looking at how they are planning to bounce back from this deficit or not collapse because of it. And they relied on institutional support, not just a department, athletic department. They need to go bigger and rely on institutional support. They, like I said earlier, they said, okay, we need to rely on student fees to help with closing these gaps. So to have to go out and ask for that extra help, that means that the institution is benefiting, right? The institution is benefiting from sports. We know, and I'm going to say inarguably, that most students like to attend colleges that have successful sports programs. And icing on the cake, if it has exceptional academic programs. Yes, you have your outliers with just focus on just academics, but it's something about school pride when you look at sports programs. So the institution benefits from sports programs. The students benefit from having successful sports programs. They benefit from bringing in notable coaches, cream of the crop athletes. Everyone benefits. But for Colorado to now have to reach out outside of a department and say we need help, that means everyone who was benefiting from the success wasn't carrying the downside of the risk eventually. But now, reaching out, everyone who's benefiting from the success is going to have to carry the downside of the risk. To not already have that infrastructure or business plan, especially with the new wave institution scene. This wasn't just about an athletic department. NIL shift was not just about athletic department. It was institution wise. Institutions were going to be affected, period. So to now in hindsight have to do it this way, that means that there was a structure issue, as we talked about with infrastructure. There's a structure issue, business planning issue, but there was a collaboration issue. They were collaborating on a level of I'm the institution, you're the athletic department in the institution, but it wasn't a collaboration level with risk sharing in the beginning. And collaboration without risk sharing creates a complete imbalance. And this is what happens in general. Now I'm talking to you, listener, listening to how this even works on an institutional level where you have a whole entire institution, and we even say the institutional name when we referencing a sports program. A lot of times there's a disconnect. There's a collaboration on a level of um, incidental association, but there's not collaboration on a level of complete support, financially or otherwise. It's just a collaboration as far as I get the benefit off of the successes of this situation. And you help build up our name. And you can use the name. We collaborate in that sense. We use the name, but not on the level where there's this complete support. And a lot of times, athletic departments, a lot of people may not know, and institutions don't receive just even the human support, not financial support. A lot of times it don't. There's this competition. A lot of times you may have individuals on campuses who feel as though athletes think they're this or think they're that, and you may have this competition between faculty in sports. All this happened in house, but on the outside, there's this appearance of collaboration because of the brand itself. So just listener in general, whatever you do, if you're someone doing something and collaboration is a important component of what you do, and I'm trying to think what's not, at some point, to continue to go to every level in whatever someone does, collaboration is an important key to make that happen. But you want to make sure that that collaboration is mutually beneficial, and that means risk sharing. One party funds the operation while the other party benefits. That's not mutual risk sharing. You have certain collaborators who will get paid regardless of an outcome. That's not risk sharing. You have a relationship where whatever risks are, whatever type of risks of providing this product or service are, that is completely concentrated on one collaborator and not another. That's not risk sharing. And that happens a lot. We'll look at investors. People bring on investors, they're a collaborator. What does risk sharing look like with that? So, talking specifically to you now, athletes, if particular brands, and this is collegiate athletes, professional athletes, this is not just, these are all, I'm speaking to all athletes. If you are a sports professional, if brands, teams, or organizations, they profit from your performance, but you carry the long-term risks, your deal structure is incomplete. You carry the risk where brands and teams and organization will benefit from the results of your performance. The results of your performance. They don't have to perform. They benefit from that. You carry the risk. You carry the long-term risk. Your structure is incomplete. There's a collaboration there. And it's not just, okay, I'm providing monetary, whatever it is, and you provide physical. Well, what does that risk look like? Then that means there needs to be a higher risk monetarily, because you need to think about creating a situation where this financial risk on you, like if something happens to me physically, it has to be something that is equitable to you financially. I can take that financially to help me physically. But if you're risking everything and it doesn't match, what if you risk something, God forbid, you cannot ever walk again, perform again? What does that risk look like them financially versus what you just risked for yourself physically? How is the deal structured to make it make sense? I'm not saying it's going to make everything better. If something was to happen where somebody couldn't walk and do this, there's no amount of money that somebody would want to trade in to not be able to walk again. But there is amount of money to be able to trade in to give somebody at least some type of peace of mind and quality of life moving forward with not being able to use their body physically again, and not put that hardship and strain not just on themselves but possibly family members. If you're an entertainer or you are a creative, if you're collaborating with individuals and they get paid, whoever you're collaborating with, they get paid whether the project succeeds or fails, but you only absorb the losses, the deal structure is incomplete. There's a problem with that. They're getting paid no matter if you succeed or fail. But you don't. You absorb whatever loss. Or you do a collaboration and you possibly get paid something, but they get paid and then some, depending on what you do. That happens a lot of times where you come in and you're doing a collaboration and you get this one set thing for coming in just collaborating, but then once that thing is done, there is an incentive, financial incentive for that, but you are no part of that. So really understanding your collaboration with individuals and what risks are there and what benefits are there and who's benefiting, who's carrying more risk. That is important. Entrepreneurs, like I just mentioned earlier, investors, that's one of the biggest things. You have so many individuals say, I want to collaborate. I want an investor to come in. When you have somebody as an investor, they're collaborators. You may have some who investors who say, I don't want to be involved in the business, collaborating actively. I want to be a passive collaborator, right? They're not an active operational collaborator. They give money, but it's not as passive as individuals think. The collaboration comes out in another way. The collaboration comes out in, if I give a certain amount of money and I get a certain amount of percentage of control for that money, then there's things that I will be able to speak up on when I want to speak up on those things. I may have gained certain amount of control in the business where I say, I don't want that done. I don't want this person a part of this. I don't want you selling here. I don't want you showing up there. People don't realize that when you bring investors in, if you're not paying attention to the terms that surround that investment, there's a big problem. Or just flip it. If you're someone, right? So you're just collaborating with someone, but you're the individual that's putting up the capital. You're putting up a lot of capital, but you're collaborating with someone who feel as though they make all the decisions and have all the authority. You're carrying risk without control. So you flip it as well. And that's what investors think too. If they're going to put up capital, especially if you go to them and you're not fronting anything, and you go to an investor and they're fronting everything, but you're bringing the vision, then yes, they're going to want a lot of authority and decision making because they're putting up all of the capital and they don't want to carry the risk without some type of control. I'm not just giving someone up all of my money, putting up all of the capital to fund this situation, and I risk everything because I don't have any control and say. So you got to think about it from both sides. You may be the entrepreneur who is an investor, and you're out here investing. You want to look at those terms depending on how much you're putting up, especially if it's all the capital. Do you have decision making in what you are investing in? If everyone eats when things go well, when everything is going well and everyone's able to eat, whoever you're collaborating with, everyone should also feel it when things don't. If you're able to eat and you're able to eat and you're able to eat, but I'm the only one who feel it when we can't eat, there's a problem. So you have to ask yourself, who benefits if this works and who suffers if it doesn't? That's what you want to think about as you think about collaborators. And not like the University of Colorado, after everyone suffered, now I'm reaching out, I'm asking, help. We're about to be in a deficit, help. We were all eating as a whole, as a university, we all throwing that name, slapping that brand out. We was all eating. Help. Another point is the University of Colorado is also now looking for sponsorships, events, all types of brand activation to support operations. So this is outside of their internal collaborators. And a lot of what they're looking for now should have already been executed, because a brand, your brand, it is an asset portfolio. It's not a single stream. It is an asset portfolio. You don't want to wait until you're under pressure to start thinking in this way, looking for all of these other things, using your asset to get all these other relationships. You want to already be thinking about building your portfolio, your asset portfolio. As I mentioned earlier, remember I said the product you give, the service you give, that's the thing, but the source in which it comes from is the actual asset. You build value in the thing that it comes from. You're the asset. Don't wait for pressure to force you to think about building a portfolio using your asset instead of staying stuck and just providing this particular product or service. And that happens in whatever you may do, whatever area you may provide products or service, whatever it is that you may do. This happens when you rely on one income source. A lot of times this happens as someone who's an employee, and it's okay to be an employee. I'm one of those individuals. I it really rubs me wrong when individuals speak about not working, just everyone in the world become an entrepreneur, a founder, a owner. I mean, well, if that's the case, who will even work for you when you run a business? But I digress. If you're someone who is an employee, now I do agree with, now have something else on the side. Don't just rely on one source of income. This is not just for founders, individuals in the sports industry, creatives. It's not, it's whoever you are. Don't rely on one source of income. Don't depend on one platform, because you will have gatekeepers. Do not fail to treat yourself, your asset, you as the IP, as a resource to create a collection of other assets. Speaking specifically to you, my athletes, your sport, whatever it is that you do, and this is not just athletes either. This is individuals who may operate in as a sports professional outside of sports, performing services on the other end. I mean, I guess you would fit into an entrepreneur, but athletes, you're also an entrepreneur. So all of these terms are intertwined. They intersect. A sport is one asset, but your name, your image, your likeness, we're talking about NIL, which is already a thing, is being pushed in the sports world, but all of that, that is your asset. Your credibility, your relationships, those are your assets. Your actual story, all of that builds your portfolio. Sit down and figure out, what is my portfolio? As I think about possible sponsors, and I want to leverage those things, or any other thing outside of just me providing my product or service, what does my asset portfolio look like to leverage that? I need to build that. I need to, like, physically, tangibly list out what my assets are, and then look at how I need to increase the value in those particular assets. If you're, same thing, creative, your content is one asset. I have all of this content that I do. I have all of this content that I do, but I know already my plan of how to diversify even this content that I'm doing. I may be speaking to you now. You may be watching me, watching this on YouTube. You may be watching this on Spotify. You may be listening to this on Spotify or any other major audio platforms. I'm already diversifying this content, but I'm also going to use it for so many other things outside of using it for right now to empower you and to teach you. It can be flipped into books, instructional guides, not just video and audio, but now it could be books. So many things. You, as a creative, your content is one asset, but you build an audience, you build processes. All of this is intellectual property. Lay out your portfolio on how you can do that. If you're someone who performs, you're performing, that's one thing. That's one asset. But capturing that performance, can you use that performance and then make it a derivative to where you're teaching using a performance? You're putting together some type of documentary or short film using performance. There's so many things you can do with one asset to multiply it into the other because you are the ultimate asset. And same thing with entrepreneurs providing products or services. Your product is one asset. Y- Your systems, your data, things that you're building, your brand equity. People love your products. They love them. You're building equity within that brand. You're differentiating yourself from others who provide that same product. Are you working hard to do that? So now you're building leverage in your brand portfolio. Are you federally protecting your brand? If you, no matter what area you're in, if you have a brand that identifies a source that provides a product or service nationally, at least beyond more than one state, then you federally protect it. You federally protect it, you get brand valuation, you get value within that brand after you add that federal protection to it. So I want you to list every asset you control and circle the ones you are not monetizing or protecting. And then list every asset and sit and think about, wait, what am I missing? What can I add here? What else can I list here? Add that as well. Which brings me to my last point, which is your return on your investment. When looking at the University of Colorado, all the things above that I talked about, all 4 points, everything they invested into, what is the return on it? Was that thought through? Because return on investment, ROI, is about sustainability. It's not just about money. It's about sustainability. Large investments are often justified, right? By attention, momentum, visibility, all the things we talked about. Oh, this is huge. We throw out all these different things. I'm going to put a large investment here to get all those things. But ROI only matters if it strengthens the system, your system, or any system long term. If growth make operations harder instead of easier, the return is absolutely incomplete. And this is what happens when whatever we're investing in or requesting as far as growth, it increases workload, but it doesn't increase the margin. You need to look at margins. Are you getting your margin, 30 to 40% margin and whatever you're actually, what is your return on what you're putting out? You have visibility that rises. Oh, I want to market. I want to market my company. I want the visibility out there. And it just increases stress. You don't get a return on that investment. And you feel success looks good externally. People think that there's a lot of success going on externally, but you know that inside it's fragile internally. Again, speaking to you, my athletes, um, if you enter into deals and the deal does not, you can't get more time, but it can respect your time. It can buy time for you. If your deal doesn't do that, if it doesn't give you several options, it's more just locked in. You don't get options, but other people get options. You don't get the protections you need. You're not getting the full return on your investment because the one thing that's really important beyond everything else that come is our time. And how is what you're doing making time very fulfilling. That's the return. If you are entertainer, creative, if growth brought you attention, but not sustainability, you're on IG, you're on all social media, you got 50, 60,000, 90,000 followers. You got all the attention, you did everything, you put all your stuff out there. Is it worth it? If that growth brought you attention but not sustainability, that return is gonna come at a cost. You again, like I said earlier, you're just borrowing against your future. You're doing all this, but how does what you're doing give you a return? You can have 3,000 followers, 2,000 followers, and have a return on your investment. It's not just about getting the attention, it's getting what you want to get the outcome that you want, your return on investments. My entrepreneurs, if you're scaling, if scaling your business, you're trying to get there, that's what you're aiming for. Um, makes your business harder to run instead of easier, the return needs to be reevaluated. Because honestly, because we use this word scale, and a lot of times we use the word scale, we means, hitting a certain number financially. But scaling, which I heard someone say, and I completely agree with this, scaling is literally getting to a point where it needs less of you. Whatever you're doing needs less of you. That's scaling. You get to the point where you can scale. You can pull back yourself from a situation and it runs. You can at scale. And then it obviously will continue to put money in that you don't have to work so hard continuing to do. That's a return on investment. So if the return does not strengthen your foundation, it's not a return. It's not a return. It went out. It doesn't, nothing comes back. It's a trade off. So I want you to ask yourself, in whatever you're doing, did this decision make my life and my business more stable or fragile? And that's exactly what University of Colorado had to look at as well. Did it do that? So our lessons from these 5 points, business lessons, professional lessons, life lessons, using what they did not do in many other colleges, I'm saying as well, but since they were in the news, I pulled them. Greed is not about wanting more. It's not. We're gonna say that, like we said earlier, greed is demanding expansion without building the capacity to sustain it. That's greed. We should always want more. I'm built to have the best and want more. We should always want more. But to want it, to demand it without building the capacity to sustain it, that's what's greed. That's greed. You need planning, you need execution and intention. So that way you can determine how your growth can actually be leveraged. So, in closing, Colorado is not a cautionary tale about just NIL and college sports. It's a real Colorado situation right now is a real-time reminder that systems must grow with success. Systems must do it with success, and not just to have greed to want more without all the things that more requires. Success does not break people. Unprepared systems do. And as we think about ownership in whatever area that you may be in, however you may operate, ownership is not just about how much you make, it's about how well your structure survives success. And that means doing all the things I talk about, from infrastructure to business planning to proper collaboration to understanding return on investments, all the things that I talked about. We can't miss those parts. And if you are a profitable individual and you're missing these parts, you are vulnerable and you run risks of losing it all, just like Colorado's making sure they won't. So I hope we learn these lessons. I hope there was something in here. I trust that there's something in here that I spoke about that will spark a flame inside of you to revisit what you have going on and doing it better, making sure that you on this smaller scale than a whole university system can rock it, can can make it happen. And if you're struggling in one of these areas, hopefully this was something to say, that's what I need to go back and do. I'm going to be planning, hopefully, to roll out a webinar, and we're going to go deep into a lot of these different things, just the ABCs, just understanding betting on yourself and understanding these things to be put in place to bet on yourself and being able to evaluate and assess what may need to be done better, because these are the things I'm seeing over and over and over and over again. It doesn't take a genie in a bottle. It literally just takes your mind awakening and then taking action. So, yeah, thank you for watching another segment of Seek Elevation. Remember, the more you know, the more you grow, the more you learn, the more you can earn. But when you share, you show care. So don't keep this segment to yourself. Share it with other individuals. Um, tag a friend, text the link to them, let them see, and let us all continue to elevate together. That's what we're here for. Let's elevate together. Until next time, I want you to keep striving. I want you to keep growing. And most importantly, I want you to keep seeking elevation, peace, and progress.